I'm Matthew Jacobs.
And I'm Joseph Evans.
And we're here to present to you Fibonacci's numbers. So not too many people know what Fibonacci's numbers are, but they exist all around us in nature, the stock market, architecture, and much more. So Leonardo Fibonacci was born in 1170 in Pisa, Italy. He was actually born with the last name Pisano. The name Fibonacci came from a mistranslation in one of his later books. So he was born in a family of high education, and his father Guillermo was a math teacher. He eventually moved to northern Africa with his dad to study math, and upon returning in the year 1200, he wrote many of his famous mathematical books. In the year 1202, he wrote his book titled The Liber Abaci, and this contains the famous Fibonacci sequence.
Although Fibonacci's numbers are all around us, not many people know about them. Fibonacci explains that the number sequence starting at 0 and 1, the two numbers before the third, will be added together to get the third solution. Sounds confusing, right? Well, it's generally an easy concept. For example, since the first two numbers are 0 and 1, you would add them together and get 1. Then you would add 1 and 1 to get 2, then 2 and 1 to get 3, so on and so forth. This is the formula for it. F sub n equals f sub n minus 1 plus f sub n minus 2. That means the current number equals the number plus the previous number plus the number before the previous number.
Along with the Fibonacci sequence and Fibonacci's book, Liber Abaci, he also talked about the golden spiral. Now this is, along with the Fibonacci sequence, is perfect in itself. And as you can see here, in each of these squares, it will touch a corner of each of the squares, showing that the spiral was perfect along with the ratio.
So, as we said before, Fibonacci numbers are present in nature. Whether it be the petals of a leaf or the animal reproduction, we see the Fibonacci sequence as it goes down or gets greater. And since we know that nature is really specific, the Fibonacci sequence helps us show this. So this is actually the way that Leonardo Fibonacci discovered the Fibonacci sequence, through rabbits. So here we see exponential growth as the population of the rabbits get bigger and bigger following the Fibonacci sequence.
This is another example of the Fibonacci sequence. As you can see, these flowers each have a specific number of petals. 3 petals plus 5 petals, 8 petals plus 13 petals equals 21 petals, and 13 plus 21, 34, 21 plus 34 equals 55, and so on and so forth. And these are some of the flowers that are that go along with the Fibonacci sequence.
Here are some pictures representing the Fibonacci sequence of flowers. As you can see, the iris will have 3 full flowers, but the lily is especially significant because it will have many petals, but because they are arranged in 3 rows, it shows that it's also perfect. And then along with 5 petals, we have the buttercup, which will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the wild rose, which will have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And while also being in nature, it is also in the stock market. And by plugging into the formula that we used before, f sub n equals f sub n minus 1 plus f sub n minus 2, you can find if a stock will grow or decrease over a certain number of days, weeks, months, or years. And by also plugging into the same formula, investors can calculate the money they'll gain or lose through retracement levels, which will show if a stock will also trend up or down over a certain number of weeks or days.
So, as Joe said with the retracement levels, we can see if the stock market will change. The Lucas numbers are a way to get a more specific number in the stock market. So if you have a big company that wants to figure out a specific amount of money that they will gain or lose, they're going to use the Lucas numbers. So this is the equation for the Lucas numbers. This symbol here would represent phi, which represents the golden ratio. And this here is the golden ratio. It's an irrational number, but it also shows stuff like the golden spiral and the Fibonacci sequence in numbers.
We also see the golden ratio in architecture. Even though Fibonacci founded the numbers in 1202, the sequence can be found all the way back to the ancient Greeks. In their structure, the Parthenon, you can see the golden ratio very clearly. See, this is the golden ratio touching each corner. it goes from here, then outward, and each one of these equals the previous one. This equals this, and that equals that.
So now we have a video to show you that's actually on the architecture. It's Donald Duck and Magic Land. That's what it's called. So here we see the squares coming together in one rectangle, and then we see that the
The rectangle will also form itself into the golden spiral by dividing itself into perfect rectangles that are proportional by 5 with a golden ratio. And by dividing a rectangle by 5, you can tell if it is part of the Fibonacci sequence or not.
and there we see the golden spiral as it is present in the Fibonacci sequence.
And then here in the ancient times, we can see the Parthenon also follows the golden spiral and the proportional rectangles by 5.
In each different way, we see the proportional rectangle.
We see it in other ancient buildings as well. This one is also proportional with the rectangles throughout the building.
And along with ancient structures, many new scientists and young architects are putting them in modern day structures. So if you look at this building, it follows the golden spiral that Fibonacci has given us, showing that it is significantly perfect. And then if you look at this building here in Toronto, you can see that these rectangles are proportional by 5, and that this line here touches a certain point of each rectangle. And then this building in Sweden also shows how the golden spiral is present in it.
And another important point to bring up is the golden spiral in artwork. So in Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa, we see here that all the rectangles proportional to 5 will be present in this picture. But that brings up another point as well. This can determine if you're naturally beautiful or not. So if you take the length from your chin to your forehead and divide that by the length of your nose to your forehead, and if that equals close to or the golden ratio, then that means you are naturally beautiful. In the Ave Maria, we see the golden spiral is present here as well. And in one of Donatello's paintings, we see the golden spiral here going around the painting, of course all being proportional. And then in George Seurat's painting, we see all these proportional rectangles in the painting.
And so now that we have come to the conclusion of our presentation, we would like to point out that we wouldn't be here without Fibonacci's numbers, and without all these numbers, we wouldn't have the structures, architecture, or known this much about nature without them. So we thank you for your time, and thank you.